The summer of 2004 was supposed to be perfect. Camp Willow Pines, tucked deep into the forests of upstate New York, had been running for over 3 decades. Kids came from all over to swim, hike, roast marshmallows, and sleep under the stars. It was the kind of place where you made lifelong memories. But that year, the memories would be anything but warm. Jake Thompson was 19, fresh out of his first year of college, and eager for his first real job. He'd been hired as a counselor and assigned to Cabin 9, an old wooden structure with creaky floors and paper-thin walls. He was paired with Dylan, a sarcastic but experienced counselor who'd been at Willow Pines 2 summers in a row. The campers arrived full of energy, laughing, shouting, dragging their duffel bags across the gravel path. But that night, something strange happened. When lights went out and the boys settled into their bunks, they grew unnervingly quiet. One boy, Mason, a pale kid with light blonde hair and anxious eyes, asked Jake if he could move to a bed far from a window. Jake asked why, and Mason replied, "They come at the windows at night." Jake chuckled and said, "What? Bears." Mason didn't laugh. He just shook his head. "Not bears. People." Jake assumed it was just nerves. First night at camp. New surroundings. Maybe he was spooked by a story someone told on the bus. But the next morning, Jake noticed small handprints smeared across the cabin windows. He wiped them away, thinking maybe one of the kids had done it. But the prints were back the next day. More of them, pressed flat against the glass like someone had been watching from outside. Jake asked the camp's caretaker, an old man named Mr. Granger, about it. The man's reaction was unsettling. He looked down at the ground and said, "Keep your boys inside after dark. That's all I'll say." The next night, Jake stayed up late on the porch with a flashlight, determined to catch whoever was messing with the cabin. Around 2 a.m, the forest went silent. No crickets, no wind, just silence. Then he saw something darting between the trees, low to the ground fast, too fast for any kid or animal he'd ever seen. He shined his flashlight into the dark, but there was nothing there, just a tree swaying slightly. He went back into the cabin and found Mason sitting up in bed, staring at him. "They saw you," Mason whispered. "They don't like that." A few cabins over, a counselor named Jessica was having her own problems. Her girls were waking up crying, saying they saw a girl with no eyes staring into the windows. Jessica thought it was night terrors until she started hearing whispering outside her own window, whispering that said her name, over and over, in a voice too young to be real. Then one of the younger boys, Tyler from Cabin 4, vanished, last seen walking near the lake just before sundown. Search teams were deployed, the police were called, and the entire camp was put on lockdown. They searched all night and into the next day. No trace of him. Jake remembered something Dylan had said on the first night, a campfire story, about how, back in the 1950s, 5 kids disappeared from the original version of Camp Willow Pines. The camp had shut down for 5 years before reopening under new owners. Dylan always told the story with a grin, but Jake wasn't smiling anymore. Later that week, Jake followed soft giggling sounds to the old maintenance shed. He thought maybe Tyler was playing a prank, hiding out, trying to scare the counselors. But inside the shed, he saw something he would never forget. A little girl, crouched in the corner, wearing a tattered dress from another era. Her skin was pale, her eyes black voids. She smiled at him, a too wide, crooked smile, and then vanished into the dark like smoke. Jake ran back to the cabin and told Dylan everything. Dylan laughed, told him he needed sleep, but Jessica wasn't laughing. She said she'd been hearing voices, seeing figures near the lake at night. They decided to look into the camp's history themselves. In an old filing cabinet in the main lodge, they found a newspaper clipping from 1956. 5 children had disappeared during a hike. Their counselor, a man named Albert Clay, was found hanging from a tree with a terrified look frozen on his face. The bodies of the kids were never found. There was mention of a Mohawk legend, the Hollow Ones, spirits of children taken before their time, cursed to play forever in the woods, luring others to join them. Jessica said they needed to leave. Jake agreed. But when they brought it up with the camp director, she refused to close down the camp. "There's no proof," she said. "You're scaring the other counselors. Just keep the kids calm." 2 nights later, Jessica took a group of campers on an overnight canoe trip. By morning, all but one were missing. A single canoe drifted back to shore empty, except for a child's drawing made with charcoal. It showed a group of eyeless stick figures holding hands beside a black hole in the ground. Jake lost it. He demanded they shut the place down. The sheriff's department returned with dogs and helicopters, but nothing was found. The one boy they recovered from the trip couldn't speak. He just sat, clutching Jessica's whistle in his hand. Camp Willow Pines closed quietly a week later. The official statement blamed environmental hazards. No mention of missing children, no mention of what really happened. Families were given carefully worded letters and small settlements. Jake never went back to the woods. He dropped out of school, moved to the West Coast, and kept his story to himself. But every July, he gets a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside is a child's drawing in black charcoal. Always different, but always the same faceless children. He doesn't open the windows at night. He doesn't answer unknown calls. And he never, ever goes near a lake in the woods again. Because some camps don't want you to leave. And some children never stop playing.